from PRX.
Friends beyond binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're going to hear scoots from the past, from all the way for episode 485. Say something similar. I think I said in a different order in the past. I don't even remember anymore. But this is a Star Trek TNG episode 485, The Big Goodbye. So it'll be a holodeck, a Picard holodeck episode. So it's a good one. And thanks everybody who's been voting. If you love these TNG episodes, we're close. So vote with your wallet. If you already support the show on Sleep With Me Plus, consider going up a tier or becoming an annual supporter. Or if you're a casual listener, but you're like, man, I want more TNG, Star Trek related stuff, vote with your wallet or let me know. But if you support the show, let me know so I can say, hey, let's make some more of these in the summer of 2025. But yeah, these are popular. It is a little bit looser show because it's, I don't even know, 8 years old or something. So it'd be a little bit more stuff we avoid in the past, like talking about forest friends and a little bit. So it's like more of a PG-13 versus what we do currently. But it's still very sleepy, and we always keep the listener in mind. But it was a different era of the show. So I hope you enjoy it. If not, don't worry. This is an extra episode. We still put out 2 episodes a week and then an extra episode. Because we heard from so many people that are really leaning on the podcast. Just like the podcast leans on you. We lean on one another. Kind of like when people fall asleep leaning on one another in cartoons only. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this episode today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. All right, everybody, it's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Helix. You've heard me talk about it. I sleep in the Helix at Dusk Lux, right? And I never thought about this, but my Helix is about 7 feet away from me. It's here whenever I record the episodes, but it's also what powers my sleep, enables my good sleep every night. If you listen to these spots, you hear about it. When I'm on the road, I don't sleep well. When I'm traveling, I'm tossing and turning. I'm too hot. The mattresses in hotels or where I'm lucky enough to be a guest, they're either too hard or too soft. And that's what I love about working with Helix, because I'm not kidding. Like, a mattress makes a gigantic difference in your quality of sleep. It's something you could look forward to getting into every night, but only if it fits you and your needs, your sleep preferences, your feel preferences. And that's what Helix figured out. You just take their quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep and you get matched with a mattress that matches your needs. Just like my mattress, the Helix Dusk Lux, fits mine. I sleep on my side. I sleep on my stomach. And you get so much choice. You could get the Helix Dusk. You could get the Helix Dusk Lux. Or now they have the Helix Elite Collection. You don't have to worry about delivery. It comes straight to your door. So don't take my word for it. Think about your comfort every night. Night after night after night, year after year after year, I've been partnering with Helix. And take that quiz. And let me know what you get on it. That quiz is at helixsleep.com/sleep. And right now, go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for 20% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. All right, we're trying this new thing called No Stone Unturned, where I'm going through these testimonials from real listeners who benefit from the show and looking at, hey, I know I benefit from the show. I know it makes my life better, but there was this one thing standing in my way of supporting it directly. So if this is the thing standing in your way, listen up. If you can afford to support the show, it makes your life better. If you rely on the show relies on you. All right, this is a good one. It came from Jennings because it had something I didn't even realize gets in the way of some people supporting the show. I love falling asleep, the friendly voice in the deep dark night with no expectations. And despite the apparently lackadaisical rambling nature of each episode, you clearly put in a lot of effort, and I want to support that and keep bringing you to the world's deep dark night. Your podcast is definitely worth paying for, but I don't like subscriptions. How often have I ended up paying for a subscription and not using it? Too many times. And that was my biggest obstacle in subscribing. Another consideration I had to overcome was the belief that you were probably getting supported by some big grant and didn't need my contribution so much. Now I understand there is no such grant. That's it for the support of the show. It's mainly listener support. We don't get any grants. We don't have any funding. And our sponsors only support us based on listener support back. That's how we're able to be here for you is listeners like Jennings. So if you identify with what Jennings said, if Sleep With Me makes your life better, don't wait. Support the show. And I'm pretty proud of the work I put into the main show that comes out night after night after night. So please support the show. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks, Jennings. Oh, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out on this show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. And don't forget, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me is with sleep phones. You can get Sleep With Me merch, Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones. And use Sleep With Me at checkout to get $5 off your order. The only way you can get the Sleep With Me merch editions is sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones. Thanks, everybody. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, you have all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that's here to put you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's been keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, changes in routine, stormy weather. And that could be a metaphorical storm. What was stormy weather? Whatever is keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. And that's what this safe place is. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. I'm going to try to stay calm so you don't really have to. I'm going to, I'm getting up close to the mic here. And I'm trying to calm it down myself, and that's how this podcast works. All you got to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And here's the usual schedule of the episode. Usually we got about 4 or 5, the first 4 or 5 minutes, we got to get all the credits and the business out of the way, housekeeping. Then there's usually a 12-minute intro, which we're about 2 minutes into that. And then we're going to talk about an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and that, that'll be lulling and soothing, and I take my time getting there, and I try to stay calm. I think I said that, but I also got to remind myself to stay calm. I think I'm closer to the mic than I've ever been before. I mean, I'm real close to it. And I don't know, it's helping me stay calmer. I guess I don't have to use as loud a voice. I got to watch my peas don't pop. So here's a little behind the scenes. I have the, like if I'm looking straight ahead, I don't know. Okay. What's that? Is a circle 365 degrees? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever said isosceles on this podcast. I think I have before. And I don't know if when I said isosceles, if that was my favorite triangle at the time, but I would say it is right now. So I mean, of all the names of triangles, isosceles is very sleepy. I wonder, maybe I could, if anybody's keeping track of all the books I've said I was going to write that I haven't written. I know there's I, Claudius. Maybe I could write a book, Isosceles. I think I should write the tale of the turbulent tale of the triangle. Maybe, and this isn't a joke. Sometimes this may sound like I'm joking. I'm as serious as a isosceles triangle. I think this could work. Like I need a triangle expert. So I don't know. Usually, I think Carnegie Mellon, MIT. What are the schools that I could have access? Like, what are the schools that I would have access to that are like those? I'd say, okay, they say like, some sort of polytechnic, maybe. Is there any junior polytechnics? Because that's what I could use. Because we'll write a book, Isosceles. And I knew someone named Sosthenes, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. But like isosceles, we could flip-flop the chapters, and I could have the triangle experts. It would also be hard getting, because there's so much triangulation nowadays. With these 3 dimensions, I guess I would probably have a lot of overlap. So no, I'm not looking for a triangulator. I'm looking for, you don't have a doctorate in triangles there? Oh, you want our music department? No, I don't. Wait a second. In your music department, you have a doctor of triangles? I think that could be the writer of the book, Dr. Triangles, or a new character, Dr. Triangles and Isosceles. He's saying, because universities, they really don't have because they're so complex, the bigger ones, there's probably not a number you could call. I'm sure they'd say, okay. Especially, okay, so no, I don't need a 3D, no, what's a 3D triangle called? A pyramid. I don't need anything, no, I don't need anything pyramid related. I'm only looking for 2 dimensions. I think I'm looking for 1 dimension, just triangles, isosceles triangles in particular. I'm looking for the world's foremost expert on isosceles. Oh, they're in 4th grade. Oh, every 4th grader. Oh, that's hilarious, brain. That was my brain just interrupted the podcast to interrupt me. Sorry, university switchboard. My brain interrupted this call, but I'm looking for, yeah, that's correct. Could you transfer me to Carnegie Mellon then? Is that a school? I think it is. What about Case Western? Do you have a number for them? No, you do have someone that's an expert in right triangles. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Equilateral is not, have you seen the state of things as equilateral? I wish no, not Venn diagrams. That's not a triangle. Isosceles triangles. Oh, that's a great question, ma'am. Why am I looking for the world's foremost expert in isosceles triangles? Great question. Let me try to trace my thinking back, because that'll be pretty convoluted. I was doing a podcast intro for a podcast I Make Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. It's a grown-up bedtime stories for grown-ups. Yeah, and so I was introducing, it'll put you to sleep. Believe it or not, we're in the middle of podcast intro right now, ma'am. You're not on the air because I don't have, you're imaginarily on the air. Okay, hi, Bradford. Okay, anyway, so Then I started the intro, and then something came up about triangles. I don't know where. My triangle popped right out of my brain and right out of my subconscious and into my brain, right in that frontal lobe or whatever. And it said, "Look at me. I'm an isosceles." And I said, "Well, that would make a great name for a book, Isosceles." Ma'am, I have no idea why I started talking about isosceles triangles, but now one thing I know is that once I start, I can't stop. Yeah. So it would help. It would be easier for me to stop if I knew I had, Dr. Triangle on the line. But if that's not patented, maybe I'll start going by Dr. Triangle. I mean, yeah, and I'm familiar with Triangle Man. Yeah, I am familiar with that, man. This is totally different. I always pictured Triangle Man as a equilateral triangle. Isosceles is obviously an isosceles. That's why I'm looking for the... Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I guess I'll try to get back to my podcast and pull it back together. Thank you. So anyway, hey, folks, sorry, back again. I never left, though. If you're new here, welcome. The one day this podcast may be approved by Dr. Triangle and, the Isosceles Institute, which, okay, patent that one too. Yeah, welcome to Sleep With Me podcast presented by the Isosceles Institute. I say, what would we do it? Ma'am, I didn't realize I still had you on the phone. What would we do at the Isosceles? Well, we do, we'd get it. We cover every angle, if you don't mind me saying so. And probably, think about, stuff about right triangles and equilateral triangles and work on, parallelogram related humor. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyway, thanks. Thank you. Okay. So if you're new here, that's kind of like the podcast in a, you're stuffed into one of those angles of a triangle, one of the ones that could fit it. I think what I was going to say, okay, I just followed my thoughts back. I was going to try to describe where the microphone was in proportion to my mouth, and I was trying to figure out how many degrees were in a circle. And then that's when I got a case of isosceles brain. Where'd you get that fixed? Isosceles Institute. You Sleep With Me for 10% off your treatments. Isosceles, the triangle that sounds nice and that doesn't rhyme with much, like seesawceles, Foster's freeze, with your treatment, free Foster's freeze. So if you're new here, this is a podcast to take your mind off stuff. I would I'd guess that, maybe that took your mind off stuff. And you say, well, it wasn't gripping. Wasn't terrible. Wasn't terribly interesting. That's fair enough. That's what we write in the Isosceles review. Say a little bit much on the isosceles. I say, well, just say it with me. Isosceles. Maybe that's what you could say, doesn't it sound like sleepily empowering? Isosceles. Isosceles. And you could just start to, then just like this podcast, the words, they become less formula. Isosceles. You don't even have to enunciate anymore. Isosceles. And you could just say isosceles or whatever. And ideally, that's how this podcast works for some people. I just start to drift into the background because you realize you're under no pressure to pay attention, but I'll be here if you do need to pay full attention or you need full distraction. But you're also under no pressure to fall asleep. Like I'll be here for at least an hour, kicking the tires on these used triangles to make sure I get the most value for my money, and just doing my best because it can't roll, because it's a triangle. Anyway, this is why, I guess I'm stuck. I am stuck. I do have a case of isosceles brain. I need to see Dr. No, ma'am, I can't wait till next week to see Dr. Triangle. Sorry, I have another triangle-related call here. No, ma'am, I need to get in to see Dr. Triangle. It's a business proposal, ma'am. Big money. Maybe some of it could be, maybe we could get you a credit on there. Oh, yeah, I could tell you the project title. It's called Isosceles. It's going to be the biggest thing since, quadratic equations, if you don't mind me saying so. You take your cosine and get out of here when you hear about this idea. It's a book. It's called Isosceles. It'll be a movie, or a series on HBO or Netflix or Amazon. A Tale of a Triangle. It'll be at least two stories intertwined, ma'am. The real story of the Isosceles Triangle, and a story so riveting, The Tale of a Triangle, named Isosceles, or Sauceles, I guess, maybe. And its struggle against, it'll be great. So if you could just take that down, Dr. Triangle, get a hold of Scooter. Hey, thank you, ma'am. Thanks. I got to get back to this podcast intro. So that's a podcast, a little bit silly, a little bit different, but you don't have to take me seriously. You don't have to fall asleep, and you don't have to listen. I mean, you can, you know what I mean? So really, Isosceles, if that book comes out, though, you have to read it. Well, no, you don't have to read it. You just got to buy it. But that won't be till like 2030 or whatever. So that's the podcast. I'm glad you're here. And the reason I make the show is because I've had trouble falling asleep, so I know what it's like lying there, tossing and turning. And I want to be this voice of common comfort and silliness to add some levity to bedtime. Also, no triangles in bed. That's the easy one. It's just a policy. Very, that's an easy one, especially in water beds. Holy moly. But anyway, I want to say thank you for your time. If you're skeptical, it makes total sense. Give the podcast a few tries, see if it works for you. I hope it does. Because I'm glad you're here. And I really hope and I really yearn to help you fall asleep, all right? All right, but we're trying this new thing called No Stone Unturned, where I'm going through these testimonials from real listeners who benefit from the show and looking at, hey, I know I benefit from the show. I know it makes my life better, but there was this one thing standing in my way of supporting it directly. So if this is the thing standing in your way, listen up. If you can afford to support the show, it makes your life better. If you rely on the show relies on you. All right, this one comes in from Steve from Ohio. I made a decision to support the show with my hard-earned money because it simply helped me. I've tried a lot of different products to sleep and plans, and they didn't work. My biggest obstacle was giving money to something that was free, right? And that's a pretty common thing. Why would I do that? But I tried the 7-day trial, and that helped my decision because I was able to check out everything on Sleep With Me Plus, all the different options. And it feels great to support the show because it's definitely worth keeping it. And Scooter's doing what he does best, leading the podcast. But at first I was skeptical. I really like the Read With Me episodes. And I like the main ad-free podcast without the singing and the ads. So thank you so much, Steve. If you identify what Steve said, support the show back. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. So then I can be here for you on a regular basis. Thanks. All right. So before we run through the whole episode, I wanted to stop and talk about this amazing scene and moment. I mean, there's a lot of good moments in this episode. The big goodbye. And really, unexpected wonder. When I started watching this, I said, oh, this is going to be very this. This episode defied all my expectations. But in particular, there was just this unbelievable moment. It was at around 4109. And it won't really make sense, so this won't be so much of a spoiler. Maybe it will be, but I don't think so. Plus, this is from 1989, so... but it's at the very end of the episode and says so much about Jean-Luc Picard in a good way. But Picard and this cop that he's kind of friends with, it'll make more sense when we're talking about the episode, are in Dix's office, TIX, and they're saying goodbye because Picard's going back to the Enterprise, and the cop, spoiler alert, is just a simulation. Or maybe not a simulation. I guess this would be stuff for an interesting podcast to discuss. But Picard puts on his jacket and his hat as he gets ready to return to the Enterprise. And his cop friend's standing there looking out the window, and Jean-Luc says, geez, I wish I could take you with me, back to the Enterprise, because almost like they've struck up this friendship. And he kind of says, well, I got to, book this guy. Once a cop, always a cop. He's trying to put on a brave face. But really, these characters, their interaction with the Enterprise has kind of, like for some of them, even more so, unhinged their grasp of what reality is. And I guess they won't really remember it, which says that's what to me was so striking about what Picard does here is that, I don't know, it really, and I'm not trying to be a fanboy, I guess because I'm not, I like now I hold the utmost respect for Picard because his makeup here. So he puts on his jacket and his hat, he says, geez, I wish I could take you with me. And the character, there's sad music playing, cops looking out the window. And then they turn face to face. They said, once a cop, always a cop. Picard says, well, yeah, I got to get going. So, and the cop looks down. He says, oh, yes, this is the big goodbye, huh? And Picard kind of is speechless, and they shake hands, and they hold hands, and the cop takes Picard's hand in both of his, and then the moment comes. And you got to see the acting here, because he says, tell me something, Dix. When you're gone, will this world still exist? I mean, holy Inception Matrix. He goes, the police officer, with real fear on his face, this subtle fear. He says, will my wife and kids still be waiting for me at home? And Picard still turned back, and he's looking back at him. And he's really well laid. And there's just a split second. And in that split second, it literally, I don't know if I paused it the first time I was watching it. I don't think so. But for me, the moment stretched out in time because they said, what is Picard going to say? There's this real fear in this character's face. He says, geez, what happens to me when you turn the computer off, basically? And Picard, because he says, I mean, to me, I guess I'm not, clearly if they start up Starfleet Academy, I won't be getting a call. Because they said, okay, is Picard going to lie? Is he going to dismiss the question? Or is he going to answer it honestly? And he really has nothing to lose except for what makes him Jean-Luc Picard by lying or not answering or telling the guy what he wants to hear. I guess there's two kind of lies, he could tell him. But instead, he gives him the real truth. He says, because he says, so the guy says, geez, what's going to happen to me? And Picard could say, oh, you're going to be fine. Or, oh, yes, this simulation goes on forever, just like it was real. Don't worry one bit. And then, boom, he shuts it off or whatever. But he has this look on his face, and he says, honestly, I don't know. And he has this unsure, pained look on his, oh, man, I'm looking at it right now. And they cut kind of back and forth, and the character looks down with pain on his face. Fear of the unknown, I guess. And Picard says, goodbye, my friend. And the character, whose name, of course, I can't remember, he can't even speak back. And then Picard walks off, and the lights go out, and the doors close. And then we might as well go right into the conclusion. Then Picard, in a raincoat, a suit, and a hat, he comes on the ship, and they're waiting for him to broadcast this message. He loosens his tie, puts his hands on his hips. He's got suspenders, and he does this perfect Yaraden greeting. And I guess we'll talk about it because there's a couple more interesting things. But that was just the moment for me. That just I don't know. It was a great, great moment. But let's go to the top of the episode. This is called The Big Goodbye. I didn't write down which episode it was. But it's from season 1, like in the 7, 8, 9 episode range. And this the Enterprise pulls into the screen. And it says, Captain's personal log. I think it's not. I think it's First Officer's log. Because the episode's playing in the background. Wait a second. Dixon Hill's office. Oh, you know what? I'm in the wrong spot on my notes. That's why. Oh, boy. Okay, it was only one page back. It opens with Riker, ! Very purple clouds. First officer's log. We're about to make a brief contact with the Dorada, a reclusive insect-like race known for its idiosyncratic attitude towards protocol. The Rada demand a precise greeting from Picard, and their language is most unusual. The slightest mispronunciation is regarded as an insult. And then it zooms into Riker's brow, and then right after it gets into Riker's brow, it cuts to Counselor Troy training Picard on the Urartian grammar. And it says, well, it is an insect mind, sir, because Picard's like, I don't get it. This is very overwhelming, trying to learn this grammar and be perfect. And she says, you know what, you should take a break, Captain. You need a diversion. And she says, we just upgraded the holodeck. Haven't you been looking forward to checking that out? And Picard says, Dixon Hill. And she says, it's all ready. And then so he goes up to the holodeck. He says, load up Dixon Hill, San Francisco, California, 1941. Dixon Hill PI. And then we get a captain's personal log. And he steps into this dingy office. There's great sound design here. There's typewriters and there's phones ringing, even though it's late at night, I guess. And his secretary's leaving. She says, very funny, Dix. Usually because he looks like he's dressed up as a bellboy. And Picard, who's totally on the spot, he's so genuine sometimes that he says, oh, boy, yeah, totally inappropriate. I should have changed. But we have this like noir Chinatown thing going, Philip Marlowe-esque. And the secretary's like, there's a woman in your office. There's a joke about she has nice legs. And Picard says, what do you mean? She goes, no, her legs. And Picard goes into his office, and the woman has a lot of stoles on or whatever, those fur things. Those have fallen out of fashion. And she says, I need your help, Mr. Hill. And what does this say? EMAEAE. You don't know what that means. Mr. Hill, is out. Oh, maybe she says someone's, I don't know. But she needs his help. Then it goes to, Picard's like, oh, you need my help. Then the episode opens, the big goodbye. Then the Enterprise pulls into the screen. And it's Captain's personal log. Geez, I'm delighted how good this holodeck is. A fictional world of Dixon Hill, 20th century detective, hero of mine since childhood. Flawless illusion. The characters I meet are generated by the computer, of course, but they feel real and they seem real in every way. And then we go back to tell this noir scene. Picard's thinking. He's got his thumb to his mouth. His client's talking, and she's like, I don't know who's out to get me. He goes, a lover, perhaps? And she says, or Cyrus Redblock. Maybe I'll just tell you. And then she says, name your fee. And Picard says, $20 a day plus expenses. And she goes, how's 100 cover for now? And then she kisses him on the lips. Very red lipstick gets on him. And then they cue the music as she walks out. And then Picard stays there a second to enjoy, the scenery and the desk. He looks out the windows, and there's sound design out the windows. And he says, the computer exits. And he collapses and rubs his hands together. Then there's a knock, and he says, hey, you'll have to come back. Some guy's like, Mr. Hill, I got to see you. This was funny. He goes, I'm not dressed. I'm in my office, but I'm not dressed properly. And then Picard's out, but then the guy just walks into his office. And then Picard side gone. I don't know what that says. Picard sieves the game. But he struts back into the ship. He's got a face full of makeup. This was a good thing. This was a great scene. It's in 903. I guess the observation lounge. I don't know. That's where they have their crew meetings. I don't have a good hold on what's on the ship yet. But 903, Picard's like all excited, just like a kid, so genuine. He said, this holodeck is awesome. And he goes, there's even automobiles. You got to see this. This is 903. Worf says, automobiles? Like, I fell out of my chair laughing. It's worth it. If you're down, just go to 903 and watch him. Worf say, automobiles? He doesn't say it like that. And Data explains, what it is. What does this say? Wesley. Oh, Wesley's cracking up even. Like Picard's so happy that even Wesley makes Wesley happy. Oh, and then Data also says, and this also cracks up Wesley. So Data says, well, that's transportation, ancient Earth device for transportation, also virility, also teenage mating rituals go on there. And Wesley says, teenage mating rituals? Then Picard says, hey, Dr. Crusher, would you like to come with me? And she's pleased. But then she's crestfallen after that because he says, and get that, I didn't even know this. I put rando ship as historian. He goes, get that historian to come with us too. And he goes, Data, get on that. And Data says, should I tell him? He goes, no, invite him. Then Dr. Crusher's look of frustration was funny. Oh, then he talks about getting kissed, and Dr. Crusher's like, really, really? And then Picard's like, anyway, on to the briefing, when they talk about the Jardarian being so easily irritated, and then Data wants Picard to watch a video of the last time they met the Jardarians, but everyone's like, why? Picard's like, no, I don't want to see that. Then we have Data and Geordi talking about Dixon Hill. Data's like, I find this character puzzling, and LaForge says, it's just like Sherlock Holmes, but in the 20th century. And Data says, but was his modus operandi not dissimilar, worth investigating? And Geordi says, indubitably, my dear Data, indubitably. Very funny. Cutesy funny, but in a good way. Let's see, I lost my spot here. Indubitably. Then Data gets a complete text of Dixon Hill novels and memorizes it. Moves his head. I notice he moves his head while he reads. I bet you he would get longer wear. Maybe not. Maybe if he moves his eyes. I don't know what would, where he gets maximum wear. It seemed like it'd be more mechanical wear moving his head, but maybe not. Then we have Picard and Wayland, I think, is the historian. He says, are you ready? He goes, oh, I'm more than ready, sir. And then this just gets funnier. Data rolls up like totally in character, versed in like street lingo, like a total period piece. And then they walk onto the set. I think there's an ad there. The streets wet. I always wonder, like at night on movies or TV sets, and maybe even movie sets, the streets are always wet. And they walk out on the street. There's this cool portal effect where the door from the holodeck's still there, and then it disappears. But again, really advanced. In my opinion, it looked great. And they look at some cars, and then they go up to the newsstand, and the guy says, "Hey, Dick's House Tricks." And it's so cute. And then this was Picard. He goes, say, Mac, I would like to buy a newspaper, but I don't have any money. And the guy says, don't worry about it. And then they're reading about Joe DiMaggio. And I said, the guys started talking about it. So I kind of felt like I didn't know if that was a rule. I mean, this is very Westworld, too. But they start breaking the illusion. And what does this say? Sees the chicken is gone. Sees the care. But they also mention that Data's from South America. Data sees the care. Picard sees the character is gone. History guy is removed. I don't know what that means. Something, I don't know, but they say, hey, don't worry about Data. He's weird. He's from South America. Picard is fully in illusion, I said. And then the cops roll up on Dix, and they say, you going? I can't read any of my handwriting. You're going downtown. That's what they say. You're going downtown. And everyone's so happy, but they're like, you're placing him under arrest. Like, they're just beside themselves. And he goes, for what? And he goes, for Jessica Bradley. We found your card. And then there's dramatic music. Then we're back on the bridge, status report. And the ship's getting probed, and it's like a heavy probe. It like rocks the ship a little bit. Then they get a subspace message from the insects. And Riker says, let me talk to them, even though I'm a subordinate officer. They don't like that, so they cut off the communications. Then Geordi, 10 foreign, Geordi find captain. But they send Geordi to find the captain. Meanwhile, Dr. Crusher is dressed to the nines. And then she goes into the holodeck. But at first it says, enter when, it's glitching. It keeps saying, enter when ready, when ready. And then she walks into the police station. And then she kind of slipped on her heels. Like, I guess because I haven't watched Star Trek and The Next Generation enough, but it's like Dr. Crusher a little bit clumsy. Is that like an ongoing joke? But she slips and trips, but that just makes her more likable, in my opinion, because I do that all the time. And then Data's like totally doing material. He says, hiya, Doc, what's cooking, eh? And she goes, I had trouble getting here. Where's the Picard? And he says, he's on ice. And she says, what? He goes, he's being grilled. And she goes, like a fish? And then Wayland says, no, interrogated for a crime. And then she says, what? Like, but he's so happy. And she goes, why aren't we all being interrogated? This is really joyous stuff, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. Like, and then I lost my spot again. They're just so excited. Dr. Crusher sits next to another woman. I couldn't tell if it was his secretary or, but she tries to copy the woman's style that she's sitting next to. And then Picard's in his interrogation. Then it cuts to Geordi, who can't get the holodeck to work. And then there's a surprise, of which I don't know what it is. I guess that he can't get it open. Why did I put surprise? Geordi can't get the holodeck to work. A surprise. He said he can't get a hold of them at all or something. Can't open the doors, so we're toast because those insects need to talk to him. I guess the crew's reaction on the bridge was surprise. Then we go to an ad. Then Riker got a log, we can't get a hold of the captain. We got to talk to these friggin' insects, and they want perfect grammar and, total chain of command. So he says, we got to get this thing fixed. And Wesley wants to help, but Riker's like, no way, stay on the bridge. And then Troy said, well, he's missing his mother, so I could let him help. Then we're in the interrogation, but Picard seems to be getting bored. And then we're outside in the police station, and Dr. Crusher's putting on makeup, and there's like this total dirtbag watching her from behind, like making noises, like very, very old school dirtbag material. And she says, is there something on your mind? He goes, oh, yeah, but I can't be shared in mixed company. He goes, you're a hep-looking broad. And she goes, is that good? And then he says, it's not bad. And he goes, you like Tommy Dorsey? I got 2 tickets for the dance. And actually, he hands her gum at some point, and she eats the gum and, almost gets sick. So like she gulps it down. So that was great. Then we have Riker is really mad. He's yelling at the holodeck kind of while Wesley's trying to get it to work. Hunt my millimeter. Oh, Wesley's going to look millimeter by millimeter for them. Oh, Riker, I don't think Riker just yells down to the holodeck. He goes, Riker to holodeck. He says, get this done. Come on. Then the other cop at the interrogation vouches for Dix. He says, let's release him. If he leaves, and then Picard says, if I leave town leaves with me, so you don't got to worry about it. And then Picard tries to smoke a cigarette, And then the other cop says, Dix, why don't you come over for dinner sometime with me and the wife and the kids? And then as Picard exits the back room of the station, the history dude is just standing there looking at light fixtures, which was awesome, and really examining them. And Data's looking in the mirror. He's still practicing material. This is just really, I had no idea how good Star Trek The Next Generation is. This is really, there's so many little gems in here. And then you get the underlying sensual tension because Picard runs into Dr. Crusher and both of them are breathless. They make lots of eye contact. And she says, having a good time? He goes, I don't know. Almost seems too real. And he goes, you wear it well. I'm glad you could make it. And, then they get into role play. Clearly, without a doubt, role play. And she says, why, thank you, Mr. Hill. And Picard says, well, maybe we should get back to the ship. And she goes, we're on the ship, of course. And he goes, so we are. And she goes, do we have time to see your office? And he goes, yeah. Oh, do we have time? We've got about 4 minutes, And they both are like, they have hot chests, And then, what's his name? The history guy says, hey, can I come along? And then Data says, yeah, me too, boss. I'd love to have a gander. And they both roll their eyes like Picard, and it was just perfect. I was like, holy cow, this show's funny. Well, Crusher rolls her eyes, but Picard does like a what? K look. And then they get to the office, and Mr. Leach is there. He kind of gets the drop on them. Then we go back to Riker interacting with Geordi and Wes, working on fixing stuff. And then we go back to, like, Leach, and who says, you're not going anywhere. We're going to hang out here and have some fun. And everyone is laughing. They're like, what, are you kidding me? Like, he's like, like they felt like they were in a movie. Like Leach, this character's like, you're all in big trouble. And they're like, oh no, we're all in big trouble. Oh dear. And then the history guy really starts hamming it up. Did I put, Holy Westworld I put. And then Leach, Leach had a squirt, like a squirter. And he squirts Waylon. And Waylon says, my shirt actually got wet. I'm going to catch a chill. I got to stay warm. And then they said the holodeck is... so he gets a little bit of the chills. So he has to lie down. And they try to get blankets on him. And he says, I thought it wasn't real. And then it cuts to a commercial. Then Picard gets a drop on the Leech. And he says, hey, get out of here. You sprayed my friend with water. And Leach goes, well, I see what Mr. Red Black has to say about that. I'm not, Oh, and they're also looking for like a MacGuffin or whatever, like a Maltese Falcon type thing. Leach and then Red Black. They say, where is it? But then they're like, we got to get this guy dry shirts. And they say exit, and there's no exits. And then we cut to the bridge, and the ship's getting close to the insect meeting place. They're in a standing orbit, and Riker's like, dude, we're running out of time. And then they go back to the office, and they're still looking for an exit, and even Picard says, suggestion, and Data says, sir, I'm at a loss. And then Data learns about light cards. What does that mean? Oh, light cords. Data goes, he says, get some light over here. Maybe we could dry, use the incandescence to dry his shirt. And Data doesn't realize the lights have to be plugged in. I mean, that's a good simulation, too. That the light unplugs. And then Leach shows up with Cyrus Red Black, who's played by the great Lawrence Tierney, who you've probably seen, in a lot of great movies. He plays a tough guy, and he plays a tough guy in this one, Cyrus Red Black. And this is when things really get interesting. Like we flash back, Riker's trying to get, control of the ship, and Geordi and Wesley are still working really hard, and Geordi's trying to be patient. But what was weird is that Cyrus Redblock supposedly may or may not know Dixon Hill, but he introduces himself. He says, "Good day, Mr. Hill. I'm Mr. Cyrus Redblock." And he starts making a speech. He goes, "Life is an endless stream of choices. Unfortunately, you've chosen to make mine more difficult." And he says, do you have the hidden thing here? And Picard says, "No." And he says, "Well, we're going to look around if you don't mind." And Crusher says, "Why are you asking if you're just going to do it?" And Redblock says, "Good manners, ma'am, are never a waste of time. Civility, always civility." And then he says, Leach says, "Oh, Picard was picking on me." And Redblock says, "For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, a Newtonian truism you've obviously neglected." And I don't know if that was a hidden thing in there. I didn't think about it till just now. Then the other cop shows up, and he's got a bottle of scotch to drink with Dix, and he says, "Geez, I guess you forgot to throw out the trash." And Redblock says, "I don't tolerate disrespect." And Data goes, "Your devotion to etiquette is highly admirable, sir. However, your methods leave much to be desired." Let me just check here. Tolerable. Yeah, and then things get really weird at first because he says, "What do we have here?" They go, "You look terrible." They're talking to Data. And Redblock says, "Where are you from?" And Leach says, where were you hatched?" And Data says, "I was created on a planet." And Picard says, "Data." And he goes, "South America. I'm from South America." And Redblock says, "I've been all over the world. I've never seen anything like you." And Picard breaks the wall. He goes for full inception. He says, "We're not from this world. None of us are. We're from a world of fabulous riches, a world where there's objects far greater than the one you seek." And this is like, it is a bit like Inception in a different way, because then Leach starts to get really nervous. It really wears on the computer, I think, knowing it's fake or manufactured. He says, "You're a PI. You've never mentioned this before." And the cop says, "I'm not buying it either, Dix. This is weak stuff." And Picard says, "I just look like Dixon Hill. I'm not Dixon Hill." And then Data says, "He speaks the truth, sir. From your point of view, he's only a facsimile, a cheap imitation." Data tries to get Captain's back, but roasts? I don't know what that means. But the captain says, "Thank you, Data." Oh, he goes, "Yes, sorry, sir." And Redblock goes, "What a wonderful fiction, quite entertaining. I admire your skill at trying to obfuscate our reality." I think that's what he said, obfuscate or something. And Data says, "It is you who are not real, sir." And I don't know if it's Picard or Crusher. I think it was Crusher. He goes, "Data? It's just mean. You can't call somebody not real." And then Leach, really, he doesn't like, I don't like this, because Data says, "Your imaginary character is derived from world fiction. You're not even a real imaginary character. You're a derivative fictional character." And the cop's like, they're not going to fall for your lies. And Data goes, "I'm afraid you're not even real, officer." And Leach goes, "You're making me crazy." He goes, "Redblock, you got to make him stop." And Redblock goes, "This is interesting to me. He's even a smart program." He goes, "Let's test this theory out." And he goes, "But we're not going to do anything immoral. We're going to do stuff with a purpose here. And a purpose that's ingenious." And Leach says, "Well, what's our purpose, Mr. Redblock?" He goes, "We're on a quest for knowledge, Mr. Leach. We want the item." And they go back and forth. And Picard finally says, "Well, I have the item hidden here." And Redblock says, "I knew it." He goes, "Man, what a character you are. Until the last moment, testing my resolve. All right, where is it?" And Picard says, "Well, you got to do something for me if you want me to give it to you." And he goes, "Make your thoughts fruitful and your words eloquent, because I don't have time to waste." And Picard says, "Okay, here's my price." He goes, "Oh, I knew you were a man of my stripe." And he goes, you got to get this guy a dry shirt. Go on to the Enterprise and get this guy dry shirts, preferably, uniform. Get his uniform back, a historian uniform. And then it cuts to the bridge, and Troy and Riker they're like, man, we're running out of time here. This is not good. And Riker says, call the insects. And they just make this insect call. And then they call Wesley, and they're like, Wesley needs a couple more hours. It's a biconverter. And Riker says, forget the explanations. Can you do it? He goes, well, if I do it wrong, it could be bad. But then it was weird because Riker says, well, how much time do you need, actually? And then he goes, no. He goes, whether I do it now or later, it's the same risk. And Riker says, do it. And then we go back to the San Francisco. Risk to be damned. Did Riker say that, or is that just what I heard? If we can. A computer, I didn't know that. So, okay. Then we start jumping back and forth. Like, first there's a thing with Red Block who says, he goes, we got to fix the computer, Picard says, and Red Block says, computer? I don't know that word. And Data says, an electrical or mechanical apparatus capable of carrying out repetitious or complex mathematical operations at high speeds. And Leach is like, you got to stop talking about this. And then Wesley's working, and then suddenly all the characters in the office are in a snowstorm. Then the exit appears, and Picard says, that's the way to our world. And Red Block says, remarkable. Is this a two-way passage? Can one enter your world and return to this one by stepping through? And Picard says, oh, yeah, if you let us get Mr. Whalen a shirt, I'll go get the item and bring it back to you. And Red Block, oh, no. You're going to stay here. I'm going through the door. And Data says, no, you can't go through there. It's not possible. And Red Block looks at Data. He says, one look at you is proof anything is possible. And he goes, take a step back, Hill. And then he says, keep all these guys. And then Red Black goes, come on, Mr. Leach. Au revoir, mon ami. Our destiny awaits. And then him and Red Leach stepped through, and he says, a whole new world to plunder. And then they just dissipate. He goes, you can't do this to me. I'm Cyrus Red Block. And then their computers, they vanish. I mean, they're not, I think they were constructs from they kind of explain it. I don't know if it's this episode or another one. That materially, I think they're real. I don't quite get it. I mean, I'm sure I'll watch enough Star Trek over the next year or two. I'll get it soon enough. But Data saves the day. He does this cool move, and then he gets Whalen and carries him off to get his shirts. And Crusher returns to the ship with Data and Whalen. And then Picard and the cop, we have that scene with the looking out the window and the sad music from the top, where I say, okay, this is the big goodbye. And he says, tell me something, is this world still going to be here? And he says, I don't know. And then the lights go out. And the captain steps onto the bridge, taking off his jacket. He says, I'm ready, ready. Oh, he says, ready, sir. And Picard says, ready as I'll ever be. And he loosens his tie. And he says, open hailing frequencies. And then he does it perfect in their language. And they say, you've honored us, as Jardarians say, you've honored us with your words of greeting. A new day dawns between us. Yeah, he drops it, Jardarian language, perfectly, nails it. There's applause on the bridge. And then Data even takes his spot. Data's still in his full outfit. And, Data, they still have to do a little vacation because the Riker says, so how was your trip, Captain? You dress like totally wild. And he says, it's a nice place to visit, number one, but, I wouldn't want to, spend the end of my life there. But even Picard's mannerism in saying it, and then kind of Troy going along and just rewatching it's really good. And then LaForge, Geordi kind of says, hey, Data, how was it? And Data starts doing material. He goes, it was raining in the city by the bay. Hard enough rain to wash away. And Picard says, Data. And Data says, sorry, sir, I'm glitching over here. And then Picard says, Lieutenant, take us out of orbit. And Geordi says, aye, sir. And Picard says, and Mr. LaForge? He goes, yes, sir. He goes, step on it. Picard, he does it. He closes it out with a little humor. And that was how the episode came to a close. Everybody, this is Scoots with a Talk You In message from someone who supports the show. And here's what it comes down to. If you're listening to me right now, do you listen to Sleep With Me on a regular basis? If the answer is no, don't worry about anything I'm going to say after this. Can you afford to support the show back at like $10, 27, 10, $20 a month? If it's no, or if you don't have something like a subscription, you say, do I even use that? And that costs like $10 a month. I could be giving that to Sleep With Me. That makes my life better. But that's all it comes down to. Like, do you listen to Sleep With Me on a regular basis? Do you listen all night? If you listen all night, it can't be more critical that I get your attention. But yeah, if you listen to 2, 3, 4 episodes a week, like 10 episodes a month, the podcast actually makes your life better, and you count on the podcast. I got to tell you, we count on you to support the show back if you count on the podcast. People that just like listen casually, they don't count on the podcast like you do. And those are the people we need to support. We need to support the show back. We count on them. We count on listeners like you. So I'm going to read something from somebody that counts on the podcast and that supports the show back. But yeah, if all that is true, if Sleep With Me makes your life better, help us keep making your life better and support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. And this is Natalie from Ireland. I've been a supporter since 2017 or 18. I don't even remember how long it's been. I chose to support Sleep With Me because Scooter helped take my mind off the day's stressors. And something spoke to me about the creativity of the show. And I felt as a working artist, Scoot's art should be supported so others can listen when they need something to take their mind off of whatever they're feeling. So thank you, Natalie, for supporting the show. And I really appreciate it if you relate to what Natalie said. Think about supporting the show back at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus.